Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Hobby Side. And on today's episode, we are taking a showcase look at our latest Blood Bowl team that we've painted up for our upcoming Blood Bowl League. And this is the Bogenhafen Barons, an Imperial Nobility team for Games Workshop Blood Bowl. And as you can see, the team is fully completed, it is fully painted, based, and it's ready to bring blood and glory on the pitches of the Blood Bowl. So for those of you guys who are tuning in for the very first time on this channel, first of all, let me say welcome to our channel. In case you're unaware what we do on this channel, we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. And of course, if you guys are tuning in for the very first time again, we are actually putting together a 12-team Blood Bowl League for this channel. So my friends and I have been very interested in playing Blood Bowl for a long time now. Now originally we did have a 4-player league originally on this channel a long time ago, but then COVID-19 happened and that league kind of fell apart. And so because of that, now that we're getting more traction, more of my friends are interested in actually playing, we actually have a 12-team league that's going to be coming out here in a second, in a little bit. And in order to create that league, I basically had to divide up our Blood Bowl league into 2 separate conferences. One's called the New World Conference, and the other one's called the Old World Conference. And the Bogenhafen Barons will be playing in the New World Conference, is what these guys will be participating in as well. So they have 6 teams in both conferences. They will play in a round-robin style, and then of course we'll have champions for each conference, and then each of the champions from the different conferences will play off in the Blood Bowl to see who is the overall champion of all the teams. So this team was painted up by me, Bogenhafen Barons, and I really like the way that this team came out. It came out really, really awesome. Now, I will admit, this team took a lot longer to paint than I thought it was going to take. I was thinking maybe it's going to take 2 weeks tops to paint this team up. It took the better part of a month when I finally got down to actually started working on it as well. And the reason why is because these miniatures are extremely beautifully sculpted. That's one reason why it took so long. And secondly, there's a lot of detail on these miniatures that really also kind of, slowed down my painting process on this. And that's perfectly fine because it was actually well worth the challenge. I really liked it, and so it actually came out beautifully on this tabletop, as you can see here. So it came out really, really awesome. So I'm really super excited the way that it turned out. Now, as you can tell, this team is actually from the second season Blood Bowl team that was released back in 2021, I think, is when that edition came out. So this was actually part of the original box set on this one. So my friends and I actually bought that set in order to create this team. So you can see it has Griff Oberwald, the star player. We also have the Ogre in the background as well as a normal team as well. Painted up in the traditional colors of the Bogenhafen Barons with that beautiful pink magenta color with white as well as with gold on this team as well. And actually we use a whole variety of different colors and things like that to add some differentiation between the different sculpts on this team as well. Like we said before in other videos, whenever we do one of these showcases, Games Workshop, whenever they make Citadel miniatures, whenever they make a Blood Bowl team, what they do is they basically double the number of sculpts that they give you, and that's pretty much how they make their team. They give you 6 of one type of sculpt. So like, for example, we have these 6 players. They just take these sculpts and they simply duplicate it to make the other half of your team. So in order to create the illusion of different players and a variety of sculpts in the team, what you have to do is do things like alternating color schemes and design elements and stuff like that in order to create the illusion that these guys are quite different. So let's go ahead and talk about exactly how I went about painting these guys. So the first thing you'll notice about the Bogenhafen Barons is their vibrant use of color on that team. They primarily have a magenta as well as a white color scheme. And so because of that, these guys are an Imperial Nobility team, so they have the very classic Empire sculpts that you saw in the Old World in Warhammer the Fantasy Battle. So for example, if you look at these pants, for example, these pants have these very billowy pants with slits inside of them, and these slits have alternating colors of that pink with the white. Same thing with the sleeves of their jerseys. These guys are also wearing, looks like they're wearing brigadines, like the quarterback over the thrower. For example, they have huge golden armor panels. They also have these really beautiful feathers that decorate their helmets as well. And so in order to create that illusion of depth, we basically had to do certain things like alternate color schemes. So for example, this thrower here, for example, is a perfect example. So as you can see, he has on his right leg, his left leg, he's got white trouser pants with the magenta color in the slits. And then on his other leg, it has fully magenta. And if you go to the other side here, we actually reversed those color schemes as well to create the illusion that there was a variety of colors and as well as sculpts on these guys. We also did the same thing with the armor as well. If you'll notice, the armor for some of these guys is like a bright, vibrant gold, like on this thrower back here. While on the other hand, though, we have more of like a bronze copper color for the thrower here. And that's exactly what I did. I decided to take half the team and paint up in bright gold, like a vibrant gold color, the other half in a copper color, to kind of add some variety as well. And then, of course, we dry brushed all the metallic elements in Anniversary Silver by Folk Art to give this kind of shimmering, shiny effect with their armor as well. I used primarily magenta as well as pink, candy pink, in order to do the magenta colors. I did the bases in magenta and dry brushed them with pink. As for the white elements, I actually didn't use white. I actually used pale gray by Folk Art. It's a very, very, very light gray, almost white, but not exactly. And the reason why is because white traditionally is a very hard color to paint on miniatures. The reason why is because a lot of white paint, especially craft paint, is very, very thin, so it's very, very difficult to hide a lot of the mistakes that you might make with white paint, especially if you're dealing with darker colors. So because that white traditionally is very difficult to use, but what I decided to use was light gray by Folk Art because it's almost white, but the opacity of pale gray, especially with the Folk Art, the way they've done the pigment on it, it does a really beautiful job of hiding up any mistakes that you might make. And so because that worked out really, really well. At the same time, when I did the oil washing on these guys using the mid-wax poly shades that I used in order to do the oil washing on these guys, I actually cut the mid-wax I used with a 3-to-1 ratio. I basically used 1 part mid-wax poly shades and 3 parts paint thinner, so that way I really, really thinned out the pigment of the mid-wax poly shades. So when I wash these guys in that oil wash, it's just very, very faint and very, very subtle, enough to bring out the recess details on the miniatures, but not dark enough to where it would completely blot out the white. So that white is still very much crisp, it's still very much clean on these guys, but at the same time though, it brings out those details with those washes. And so instead of actually having to paint the individual wash and the individual crevices for all the miniatures, I could just do an all over wash and it still works. The darker color goes in the recesses while leaving that vibrant white relatively vibrant for the most part as well. So that's one of the nice parts about it. I will admit though, I did make some mistakes. For example, Griff Overwall right here, if you notice his helmet looks a little bit different. That helmet is extremely difficult to put on the miniature. In fact, it snapped off when we were assembling him. That's the reason why he doesn't have a face grill protecting his face, because that face grill snapped off during the assembly process. Very, very bad design choice there, Citadel. But anyways, so that's why his face looks a little bit different than normal. At the same time, while I did paint up Griff Oberwald to make it look like he's a member of the Imperial Nobility team, I did give him some blue as well as some red elements, so that way he could also play for the Reichland Reavers as well, just depending on what his situation is as well. The Ogre back here was really, really fun to paint too. As you can see, we have a lot of bronze as well as gold and silver armor panels on this guy as well. So that part was a lot of fun too. So this team looks absolutely fantastic. I really like the design elements of these guys. These ostrich feathers were actually really, really cool as well. So for the feathers on this one, I originally was going to use more vibrant colors on these feathers, like blues, reds, and yellows and things. But the problem though is that it didn't look right, in my opinion. I think it's because the magenta and the white pretty much gives them a lot of vibrancy already. So going with the normal browns and whites and blacks using on the feathers was a much better design element. As you can see, I just alternated the colors between the different feathers with different shades of brown and white and pale gray. I tipped all the feathers in pavement by Apple Barrel paint as well to make it look a little more realistic. And I also dry brushed the feathers with pale gray too, so that way you can see the highlighting on the individual fibers of the feathers too. And of course, we also continue on with our alternate paint scheme. We put blue ribbons. So if you notice, a lot of these Imperial Nobility guys have either sashes or ribbons tied around their legs and arms. So we picked those out in blue for half the team, and for the other half of the team, we picked it out in red. So that way we can add some more visual detail between the different players as well. Because sometimes it's hard to tell players apart on Blood Bowl when you're playing a game. So by adding some of those design elements like the red and blue, you've been noticing that throughout all of our teams that we've done for this second league. By doing that, it kind of helps differentiate the different players. That way it's easier to track. Now, granted, the players do have numbers, but sometimes it gets kind of confusing because the numbers are kind of small. So you do have to worry about that. So by adding those little details in there helps out as well. Same thing with the armor panels, having that bronze paint color as opposed to the gold really helps out to create some differentiation as well. So it made a lot of variety. So even though the sculpts look pretty much the same, VLI is tricked into thinking there's more sculpts than there actually are because of the variety of colors that we use, the alternate color schemes, things like that. And that's what really helps out as well. But this team was absolutely fun to paint. It was extremely challenging because you had to do these like these slits that they have in their trousers and then their sleeves of their jerseys, but well worth the effort. Same thing by adding that extra level of difficulty. We could have just painted them all the same with the same color scheme, the same design elements, but it wouldn't have come out as interesting looking if we did that as well. And of course the bases, just our typical wood glue, sand, and let it dust those bases with that, let it dry, wash it with a mixture of wood glue and water to act as a sealant, and then we dust them in our homemade flocking using our palm leaf green Bible barrel paint to paint the rim of the bases to give that classic goblin green look. We're using that for all of the Blood Bowl miniatures. They'll be using in our studio as well. So yeah, very, very happy with the way this team turned out. It looked really, really awesome as well. As you can see, we have the two sides of the coin. Really happy with the oil wash on this one. I traditionally like to use darker oil washes whenever I paint up miniatures. For a couple reasons. One, it brings out the recesses details really good. Secondly, hides a lot of mistakes that you make as well. But this time around though, we did cut the darkness of the oil wash. And originally I thought I made it too light, but after I got done drying and curing and seeing the effect afterwards, I was really, really happy with the way that oil wash combination came out with the 3-to-1 ratio. Just enough to darken it just a little bit, dark enough to bring out the recesses, but still light enough to where it didn't really impact the white too much on the brighter elements. So this team looks still very bright and vibrant, which is one thing that I really like about paint jobs. I really like to make very bright, bold colored armies and units and things because that's just the way I roll. So I'm really happy with the way it came out. And yes, we'll be doing a cheap shot video on these guys as well later on. So if you guys want to see exactly what we went about painting these guys, you'll be able to see that as well. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this one. I'm going to do this video a little bit differently this time around. So I've narrated exactly what this team will look like. After I get done with my narration here a little bit, I will show you some close-up footage of the miniatures where I don't talk at all. All I do is just do camera pans to show you exactly what it looks like. So tell me what you think. If you like that additional element on the team so that way you can see the entirety of it, let me know in the comments below. So yeah, that's going to do it for this, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. I'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.